Good evening everyone. Guys, I wasn't going to do a video this evening, but things have been going absolutely... Hang on, this might be a message from him. Guys, things have been going absolutely... Let me just... No. Guys, things have been going absolutely wild in Ukraine over the last 24 hours. So I'm doing this video quickly because Monday, obviously beginning of the new week, there's going to be more escalations, you know, civilian targets, and we're moving very close. We're moving step by step closer to that fatal day when a tactical nuclear weapon is used in Ukraine. Guys, just conceptualize this moment, okay, when it actually happens. So we've got these escalations day by day, and today's video, guys, we're going to talk about the Ukrainians using Ukrainian warplanes now to take out targets inside Russia. But the closer we get and the further we move forwards to the Russians using a battlefield nuclear weapon, imagine where you will be at that moment when it comes on the radio. Guys, breaking news, the Russians have started to use tactical nuclear weapons. Imagine the press, imagine the media, imagine the absolute chaos and frenzy. Imagine what the supermarkets are going to be like. Imagine the queues outside. We're already experiencing, you know, shortages as we are at the moment. But imagine all this put into the chaos, given the added Karen factor, what things are going to be like in whatever country you're in if something like this happens. Whether you're in a Western country, an Eastern country, doesn't really matter. The closer we get to this, obviously, and the more of these red lines are crossed, the closer we get to the Russians actually using one of these tactical nuclear weapons. They keep saying they're going to use it, and at some point they're going to have to do that, guys. So just conceptualize it now and think, okay, if that happens, do I wish I'd bought more water? Do I wish I had more food? Do I wish I had more toilet roll? You know, all this sort of stuff that's going to be gone off the shelves within 24 hours. Make sure you can go and get it now, guys, okay? Anyway, so what's been happening in Ukraine? So news of the day, news of the last 24 hours. Ukraine have used Ukrainian warplanes to take out targets inside Russia. Now, I can't find what type of warplane they're talking about. It could be, I know the Ukrainians have Sukhoi 34s, Sukhoi 27s, MiG-29s, but it could also be an F-16. I don't know what warplane they're used. They're not telling us, but this is moving forwards into that murky water of starting to use warplanes to strike targets inside Russia. Remember what we've said previously about the F-16s, where they're going to be flown from. There's only so many runways, I guess. You know, you wouldn't be an airport. There's only so many runways but you could fly them from an airport. You know, there's only so many of these runways, of these stations, that you can fly the F-16s from. And it's not just the F-16 aeroplane. It's the servicing, it's the parts, it's the repairs, it's the it's the upgrades, it's the troubleshooting. You need technicians who know what they're doing. You can't just train the pilots. You've got to train the whole logistical system to support that. That's why, me personally, I don't think these F-16s are ever going to be flown from Ukraine. They're always going to be flown from Poland. And that's when, you know, once this is identified and once the Russians have found out this, now, is this some sort, are we looking back now and saying, well, remember when the Ukrainians took out those radars? Is this all fitting into this plan now? Did they take the radars out so the Russians can't tell where these aircraft are coming from? The reality is, guys, okay, these guys are at war. Russia is the aggressor. So anything that happens now, it's just the natural progression of this conflict. Remember I always talk about this, and not many people try and look at these things objectively. Remember the perception now from the Russian side. You know, the Russians will probably be claiming that these are F-16s. There's nothing in Western media that says that. I thought that was somebody trying to tell me giving me more information, but it wasn't. The Russian media will be saying this could have been an F-16. The Russian media will be saying Western weapons. And then remember, you know, from yesterday's talk when we were saying that Russian media are saying that Putin's this gift sent by God to save the world. Guys, we are in very murky water at the moment and things are escalating and we're watching them in real time. Let's just think what's happened I'm going to try and name them off the top of my head. Let's just think of the red lines and the escalations that have happened over the last, week, month? You know, you've got, I mean, if we go 2 months, we've got attempted assassinations, we've got all sorts of wild stuff happening all over Europe. We've got the French sabre rattling, you know, saying they're going to give more weapon systems. You've got the French as well saying they're going to now train troops and they want a coalition of a training team to go into Ukraine and, you know, and train the troops in Ukraine. Guys, absolutely wild times now. And this here, what we're seeing now with this strike into Russia by the warplanes, it just marks a new step forwards, you know, a new tactical tiptoe. Also, I think on Saturday night, as reports are, Ukrainians used a drone strike to take out a Russian Su-57, which would be the equivalent of an F-22 Raptor. Guys, it's not equivalent to an F-22 Raptor. The F-22 Raptor is king of the skies. There'll never be another one like it. It's a fantastic aircraft. It's an air superiority plane. It's not, you know, it's not a multi-role fighter. It's an air dominance plane, and there's nothing like it in its class. However, you know, the Russian Fu-57 is still a very capable aircraft. So when we take all these things now and put them together, you know, we've got lots of strikes going on into Russia. Now, remember what I said again from the other videos. Is this strike, when they're claiming it's a drone strike, was this taken out by a Storm Shadow missile or a Scalp missile? And then the drone strike, as I've said many times, the drone strike, you could just saturate the area with smaller drones then to claim it was a drone strike. The reality is we don't know. The Russians will claim one thing, the Ukrainians will claim another. And, you know, with the fog of war, it's going to be very hard to find where that, you know, where the truth actually lies. But remember, the truth doesn't matter. It's only the perception of the truth that matters. For us anyway, so we can see where things are heading. So what does it mean that the Ukrainians have the capacity now to take out the Sukhoi 57? Not much. It's not really going to change things in the grand scheme of things. The Su-57, there's insufficient numbers really of Su-57s to make much of a difference. Like I said, they're not up to, they can't be matched against the F-22. It's just not as good. But you know, when we put all these things together, it really looks like we're heading towards an air war and a big air campaign from, well, you know, I want to say the Ukrainian side, but I think everybody knows now that there's a lot of NATO involvement. The Russians believe there's NATO involvement in the sense that you've got NATO troops operating these weapon systems. And again, it doesn't matter whether it's happening or not, the Russians think that. So again, that's one more step closer, that's one more step further to the Russians thinking, right, you know what, we can see these airfields that these guys are operating from, let's send a tactical nuclear weapon and, you know, and see where the chips fall. Because if they're getting attacked and it looks like the Russians are going to be losing this war, that's what they'll do. And that's what the Russian nuclear doctrine is. If you remember, I think from yesterday's video, we talked about the Russian, you know, the Russian doctrine on the use of a tactical nuclear weapon. And it's if Russian mainland is under threat, well, firing missiles from warplanes into Russia, taking out targets, kind of is. But let me just read what I'll just read you the article here, guys. From I'll put the links in the bio, in the description. Ukrainian warplane fires weapon at targets inside Russia for first time. While damage assessment is still occurring, it is confirmed as a direct hit, a Ukrainian military source tells the article. So straight away, what I'm looking at this is they're not mentioning what aircraft has been used. Now, I think this is to murky the water, so when the F-16s do start to be used for this, you know, it's kind of old news, it's old press. So I think that's what's the, you know, the angle on this. A Ukrainian, yeah, we just said that. The source said a Russian command node was hit on Sunday, so today, in the area of Belgorod, Western Russia. So that's in the, you know, in the north of the Kharkiv region, on the border, northeastern Ukraine. It was not immediately clear what type of munition was used in the attack, including whether or not it had been a Western weapon. I don't think the Ukrainians have capacity, their weapon capacity has that pinpoint accuracy. I don't know, I'm not, you know, I wouldn't know what they're using, but I think they would start to do this tactical tiptoe when they're using these weapon systems, and they would potentially, you know, start by using Ukrainian aircraft with Western munitions and then slowly just use NATO everything. And remember, if these aircraft are not entering Russian airspace, it's going to be very difficult, even if they are shot down, to find who the pilot is, because even if they're shot down over Ukraine, they're going to be recovered by Ukrainians anyway. So, you know, that water's really murky. Excuse me. The United States and France recently said the Ukrainian armed forces were permitted to use their arms to strike military targets inside Russia, from where Russian forces are launching attacks against Ukraine. And you know, it's hard to see the argument against this if the Russians are, you know, on this line, you know, imaginary line or what, the border, you know, if the Russians are 10 kilometres here firing artillery shells into Kharkiv or into wherever, it seems very unfair and strange that the Ukrainians wouldn't be able to use their munitions to take that out. Under new guidance approved by President Joe Biden, American munitions can be used on Russian soil to help defend the city of Kharkiv in the northeastern Ukraine. So that's kind of, well, that's obviously in the region that they're talking about. Lord Cameron, the UK Foreign Secretary, has been less specific, merely stating that it was up to the Ukrainians to decide how they use British weapons, such as Storm Shadow cruise missiles that can be fired by Ukrainian jets. So there we've got it, guys, okay? So the British are saying, yeah, just do whatever you want. Whereas, you know, the Americans and other people are kind of where more the focus is. You see, it's this tactical tiptoe. So David Cameron says one thing and he moves forwards. Then other people say different things to, you know, murky the water. And then we claim, oh, it wasn't an American missile, it was a British missile, so we can use British missiles to fire anywhere, American missiles to fire 10 kilometres. You see where I'm going, guys, okay? This whole water is murky now, and the, you know, the tactical tiptoe's moving forwards. And as soon as this tactical tiptoe hits that brick wall, where Putin says, no more, then you get the tactical nuclear weapon fired back. Where are we? Speaking on condition of anonymity, the military source told the news service a Ukrainian Air Force mission has struck a target, a command node in Belgorod. Yeah, okay. Whilst damage assessment is still occurring, yeah, we've read that. Ukraine has launched multiple drone strikes deep, here we are, guys. Ukraine has launched multiple drone strikes deep into Russian territory, but the use of a warplane to strike targets inside Russia could be seen as an escalation by Moscow. Do you reckon? Do you think that could be seen? So if I'm reading between the lines here, guys, and I am, and this is me speculating, I would say that is a Ukrainian aircraft, but with a Western NATO munition on it. And this has just pushed us a little bit closer to everything going wrong. Now, let's quickly go back to what I said before, guys, all right? Remember that conceptualization I gave you. Look what's happening on the ground. And the reason I'm telling you this, guys, all right, is so you guys can look after yourselves and you can see what's coming and you're not caught out. So imagine that perception, that visualization I gave you earlier, guys, all right? That it comes on the news tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning, whatever. the first use of a tactical nuclear weapon, Russia destroys 2 Ukrainian airfields and X, Y and Z. Imagine the media hysteria, guys. Imagine the Karen factor in the supermarkets. Imagine the fear and the panic and how quickly things are going to vanish off the shelves. It's just going to happen overnight, guys, okay? So make sure you've got yourself ready now. And if there's something that you're, especially food-wise, guys, all right? We did if you've not watched our live stream that we put out yesterday, we talked about this, and somebody on the live stream said that they're paying like £3.50 now for a tin of stewed steak. This has gone up proportionally more than gold. So we should start looking at food as an actual investment, because, you know, you can eat food and you can't really eat your blocks of gold or your Bitcoin. You can't really do anything with that stuff. Yes, it's fine and it's cool to have it on your phone and see the numbers go up and think you're a, you know, and think you're a baller. But the reality is, when all this crumbles, when all this fails, you can't eat gold. I don't know, maybe you can. So that's what I'm saying, guys, okay? So imagine all that, what we just said, guys. Imagine the shops and the chaos. Imagine all that stuff that could potentially happen as this tactical tiptoe hits the brick wall and then Putin finally fires that tactical nuclear weapon. Guys, I'm going to leave it there because I wanted this to be just a quick one to let you guys know that things are escalating in the east. Sorry, yeah, in the east. Things are escalating in the east. Poland's going to be key. These F-16s are going to be key. The air war's coming, and all this stuff is happening. And the closer we move with the tactical tiptoe, then the closer we come to that day when Putin says, right, guys, you know, what's he going to say? He's going to say something like, Yoda, destroy the capitalist scum. And that's going to be it. You know, they're going to start firing these tactical nuclear weapons. And I honestly think that the first one that goes, there's going to be a huge panic. Everything's going to go down. People are going to go in the shops and take everything. The second one, it's going to be bad. It's going to be terrible. The third one, it's going to be like, okay. The fourth one, yeah, nobody's going to care. You know, people will be watching whatever celebrity nonsense is on the TV. Whatever, you know, whatever Olympic Games is happening. And guys, the Olympic Games, that's another video in itself that I should do. The Olympic Games is going to be a huge threat. Guys, that's the purpose of this video. Air war escalating in Ukraine. We're moving closer to things going really, really bad. And the shops just being cleared, all right? So think about that, guys. Monday tomorrow, I'm going to mag the grid.